Welcome back to High Street Matters, a podcast from Bira, the British Independent Retailers Association. My name is Claire Leigh. I'm a former shop owner myself, so I know firsthand the challenges independent retailers face every day. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in for our first season. We've been so pleased with the calibre of guests and all the downloads and positive feedback we've received, so we thought we'd bring it back, and this time in a slightly different format. High Street Matters has explored really important subjects such as accessibility, retail crime, and using AI to boost social media. In our first episode of season 2, we're taking a detailed look at something that can make or break any business: trust. We're going to explore why it's important for independent retailers to encourage feedback online from their customers, how to ask for it, and crucially, how to deal with anything challenging that comes through. So today I am joined by Alicia Skubick, Chief Customer Officer at Trustpilot, the globally recognised consumer review platform, along with Andrew Goodacre, CEO of Bira, who champions the cause of independent traders across Britain every single day. So I'd like to start with you, Alicia. For those listeners who might not be familiar with Trustpilot, can you tell us just a bit about yourself and your role there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Claire. My name is Alicia Skubick, as you said. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Trustpilot. So my remit covers marketing, customer support, and our overall customer experience. And I'm super passionate about helping businesses succeed and thrive, as well as helping consumers have a voice. And so it's wonderful to be here, and I love what you're doing.
Fabulous, thank you. And Andrew, you've obviously been championing independent retailers for years now. From your perspective, how important is trust in today's retail landscape?
Oh, it's massively important. I think for independent retail, it's always been one of their unique selling propositions, really, because independent retailers tend to trade in those smaller areas or smaller places, get to know their customers and build on that relationship they have with customers. But in the wider landscape of retailing these days, with so many products sold online and in store, there's a bit of a concern about the number of faulty, fake, dangerous products being sold online through various channels. Some of them finding themselves in shops as well. So customers absolutely need the trust to know that the products they are buying are what they are meant to be and are safe to use. And so there's this opportunity for retail sector to ensure and reassure customers that their hard-earned money is being spent on the right items. And trust is all about encouraging customers to come into shops and trust that purchase.
Absolutely, thank you. Back to you, Alicia. I know how many independent retailers feel really overwhelmed by the idea of online reviews.
Yep.
They worry that maybe one bad review could damage their reputation. I mean, what would you say to a shop owner who's, say, hesitant to encourage customer feedback?
I would say, and it's easy for me to say, but I say this having also been a customer. So I was a customer 2 times over before I joined Trustpilot. So I've actually used the platform a lot with my teams. Get started. I think people are having the conversations, whether you are involved with them or not. They're having them with friends and families. They're having them with social media. And so really just taking that first step and starting to get those reviews, claiming your profile page on the platform, and then inviting customers at the right time. And what I mean by the right time is you really want to give them a chance to have experienced your product. So you as a business owner will know how long it takes for someone to really truly understand. Usually it's depends on the product, 1 to 2 weeks where they've kind of opened it up, had it delivered, and kind of started to use it. We highly recommend just getting started, and once you do, not being afraid of those negative reviews, but really embracing them. We talk about a bad review being the start of a better business because it gives you a chance to interact with your customers and make it right and be authentic. And authentic responses go so much further than just no response, not being available, or kind of glossing it over. And Andrew, to your point, smaller businesses, especially local ones, have that unique opportunity to really build that relationship with their customers. So I would say just get started.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. A bad review is the beginning of a great business, and I think that's so true. You do need feedback, good and bad, in order to learn and build on it. So I love that phrase.
Yeah, and I think for me, like as an independent retailer, I can recall just having such regular customers that I actually just forgot to ask them for reviews. It just they were in and out of the shop. It just didn't occur to me, and until I got into the habit of it, and then once they started leaving reviews, I found my online profile really improved from that. So Andrew, what advantages would you say independent retailers have when it comes to building trust that perhaps the larger chains don't?
I think it's exactly how you just explained it when you were running your business, Claire. That the independent business tends to be smaller. They have a lower customer base, but a very loyal customer base. And what that business owner can then do is really get to know customer in a very personal way. This isn't to get to know your customer as large companies look at it as data, although that data is very important. This is about getting to know your customer, how they're feeling, where they live, what they do, and almost what they're wanting to buy. And really good retailers, no matter what sector they work in, almost know what their customers are looking for as and when that person enters the shop. So the independent retailer can really work on that relationship. They're often part of a community. They can build on that community connection. And be a bigger part within that community, and I think that local knowledge and the ability to connect with those customers is a unique selling proposition. It's what can distinguish independent, a smaller shop, from the large chain that we see down the street. I think a really good example is clothes shops. You know, the small boutique. As a less of a range of clothing than, say, a Marks and Spencer's or a large chain might do. But what they do is use the opportunity. When somebody goes in to buy a dress or a suit, that business really takes an interest in how that person looks in that new outfit. The changing room, the changing area is their ability to really connect with the individual, to seal the deal in terms of the sale, and then to help them with the accessories. You go into a large store, it's impersonal, it's someone, if you're lucky to get a hello, that happens to you. You get given a ticket to prove how many items you've taken in and how many items you bring out. And it really is of no help whatsoever. And it's that personal touch, that taking an interest in the consumer, that can really make a difference and build a trust up between business and customer.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we used to pride ourselves in the shop of not only knowing the customer's name, but knowing the dog's name as well. And so when they come in, we'd be like, "Hi, Roma. Hi, Janet." And, you know, we'd hold the dog while they went into the changing rooms and did the clothing. And so it was a very, very, like you say, personal relationship, which I think does stand out from the biggest.
It is. The one thing that comes with that relationship, however, and this is something that the way I think reviews and feedback really helps, is that because it's much more accessible as a business and people feel as if they know the owner, the customers know the owner, then the owner is actually much more accountable should that product not meet its expectations of the customer. So there's working in that business as an advantage, but you have to deal with feedback, good and bad, in a very responsible, accountable way, because you are so intertwined with that community, and reputations can be spoiled if you don't deal with those issues when they come up.
Absolutely. So back to you, Alicia. So let's get a bit practical. What's your advice for a small retailer who wants to, say, start encouraging reviews but just doesn't know where to begin?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. Where we recommend people get started is making sure they've claimed their profile page on Trustpilot. You can make that a little more customized to sort of reflect your brand. And then just automating the invites and starting to send those out. You can have QR codes. There's lots of different ways you can do it. But getting started and asking for those reviews is just key in the journey, whether that's online, offline, in the store. But it's just asking for them and making sure it's at the right moment of their journey. So it may be that, like I said, like they might leave your shop. They're probably not ready for a review yet, but you can give them often retail businesses will give them a QR code that they can take home and do that. If you've got their contact details, you can send them an email at a certain point and automate that to get those reviews. And then the key thing is then responding to the reviews and making sure that you are kind of thoughtfully responding, whether that's good or bad. And again, people aren't looking for 5 stars. They're looking for an authentic, it's 5-star or it's 4.5, but it's like an owner that cares. People look at the responses. Is the response glib? Is it not really paying attention? Is it like, thank you for your feedback, and there's no real kind of resolution to the problem? Or is it really heartfelt and caring? And I think when people read through this and it matters, and they can see how it's being resolved, whether it's being resolved, and so I think paying attention to the reviews you're getting, and also doing it in a timely manner. So we recommend 24 hours is like the ideal. Any later than that, it starts to lose its effect. And people also look at the response times for this. So, yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't know that actually. So yeah, great. And both open question to both of you. How do retailers ensure that their customers want to post reviews? I mean, given there's such a high volume of requests that come in almost on a daily basis, sometimes 1, sometimes 2 reminders coming from companies very keen to gauge their kind of feedback. How do they ensure that their customers actually want to post? Alicia?
Having a great service is like the thing that, people are motivated to do it. They want their small businesses and their retail businesses to survive, and this is part of that. So often it's probably easier at a small business because your customers. You can ask them for the review, you can give them the QR code to do it, and they feel passionate about the service that they're getting. So again, often what we find is people connect, the more connected they are to a business. Sometimes it's good and bad, right? If people are really mad about something or they're very happy, they're more likely to give a review. And often what we find is people feel they have almost a moral obligation to give reviews, good and bad, because it gives, we talk about Trustpilot, the millions and millions of people every single day leaving reviews, that it gives consumers a voice and it helps them make choices. And so people want to shout about the businesses that they love and make them successful. They also want to warn other consumers if they've had a bad experience, and have that seen. So again, I think it's really offering great service is often what does that. I think one of the things we've also seen in some of the businesses, we have some case studies, Simba is a great example. They've changed some of their business processes around it, based on that, and kind of communicated that back out to their customers, whether it's by email or when people signs up in the shop, however you want to do that. So making people realize that their feedback matters and it has an impact is also a helpful way to do that.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you. And Andrew, did you want to add anything on that front?
I mean, Alicia has summed it up brilliantly there, really. What I would say is I think people shouldn't be afraid to ask. I think sometimes if you are nervous about asking for feedback, the people won't give it, or they're likely to give a more negative one. I think there should be confidence with the request. You should make it easy for people to do it, as easy as possible. QR code, whichever way you want to allow them to do it. It's almost, allow them to be able to do it in 3 clicks, no more than 3 clicks. Let them get there, make the review, place it in there. So really think about that customer journey, I guess, for placing that review, and keep it as simple as possible. And don't be afraid. It's a simple request, and if you've delivered and satisfied a customer, then there's every chance that customer would want to return some compliment by giving a positive review.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So now's the question probably every retailer dreads. Alicia, what should someone do when they get actually a negative review?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is don't get upset. Easy for me to say, but it's personal often. And so, but I think kind of taking a moment, kind of reflecting on the feedback, and then kind of writing the response, but making sure that you I would say to anyone in any situation where they've getting a negative review or negative feedback, or don't send off the email, right? Take a moment, maybe draft it, think about it. Once you start to do that more and more, it becomes like second nature, and really get to the heart of the matter, because I think this is the feedback that makes you a better business. And it could be an early warning sign. I think, Andrew, you talked about bad products. It could be about, something not right in the services that you're offering that you can fix, and helps you to do better in the end and offer a brilliant service. So I think, read it, kind of think about it, read it again, think about what the resolution is. Sometimes it's better to resolve it offline. So sometimes it's like, I'm really sorry to hear that. Let's take this offline. Let me contact you, is also like a great way to address it and show that you care. So I think making sure, and I've seen this occasionally where people have a heated response, or it's quite taken very personally. And remember that everyone's going to be reviewing your response as well. And so you want to make sure it really reflects who you are as a business, the values that you hold dear, and the service that you provide overall.
I mean, it's so important not to get into an argument, as it really is. It's easy to become very defensive. All of us in our working lives become defensive when we hear the word feedback. When someone says, "Can I give you some feedback?" you think, "Oh, hold on a minute, where's this going?" Now, I used to deal with complaints in a previous life, and one of the tips I learned from that was the opening line in a response is really important. And I adopted a way of saying, "I'm sorry you felt the need to complain. I'm sorry you feel that way." It's almost disarming, and you're not admitting guilt or liability. You're simply regretting the fact they felt the need to complain or give a negative review, and then you build up from there about what the individual or what the business owner feels they can do about it, and how they can address the issue. And you're right, Alicia. It should be a learning curve for the business, because very often feedback does highlight deficiencies where they don't know they exist.
Yeah. I mean, I know from being a retailer, we had the one bad review, and it really did throw us, I have to say. But it was amongst lots of other really good, strong reviews for a start, so that helped. And we kind of very patiently and sort of politely and kindly responded to the reviewer. And eventually, through a series of talks, she actually agreed to take, or offered to take, the review down. So, that is a possibility as well, which was a good result. Onto a slightly different subject. Alicia, there's often debate about this. So should retailers incentivize reviews? Is it appropriate to offer discounts or rewards to encourage customers to leave feedback, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's really important to distinguish between encouraging people to leave feedback and incentivizing reviews. So we're 100% behind encouraging reviews through follow-up communications, packaging prompts, in person. It's entirely appropriate. But offering discounts, rewards, or other incentives in exchange for reviews, it starts to violate our platform policies, and it really compromises the authenticity of the feedback. And so we are like strong proponents that, it's key to maintain trust and compliance, and businesses should request just honest, unbiased feedback and ensure that all opinions, positive and negative, are valued. And like I said, if you see a perfect 5-star review, that it doesn't engender necessarily trust. People will most of the time dig a little deeper on a review, so they don't just look at the stars. They will then go and investigate, especially when it's a decision that matters, a purchase that matters. And in these days, where we are, with tougher economic conditions, like every purchase matters, and it needs to be something they can have confidence in. And so, you want to have a balanced set of reviews. That's not a bad thing. The trust and the confidence, when you think about what that does to the customer when you offer an incentive, it's also sort of making them question your integrity as well, I would argue. So I think it's important both for your relationship with the customer, but also just to make sure that you don't violate any standards or practices to really ensure that you're just encouraging, not incentivizing.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I would absolutely agree with that. And in the UK, there's been a lot of discussion around fake reviews and paid for reviews, and especially in terms of product reviews specifically, as opposed to business reviews. And I know the Competition Markets Authority is introducing new regulations in the UK to limit and restrict the ability for these fake reviews to take place. You want genuine reviews, and someone who uses online for booking hotels or holidays, as many of us do. Alicia's right. You do look beyond the stars, and you look for the way the comments and the way they've been managed, you often pick up a trend of the rooms were dirty, or the food was the portions were smaller than people expected, and there's that trend developed over a period of time.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. And to you again, Andrew, have you seen examples of Bira members who sort of successfully used customer feedback to improve their businesses?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and this time of year tends to be award time, so I'm lucky to be a judge for a few awards, and the lucky bit is you get to see some great examples of great retail businesses across many sectors, and I was struck by two in very different sectors recently. One was in the wedding dress shop sector. Now, selling a wedding dress is probably the most personal item you're ever going to sell, the most precious item that will ever be sold. And I was talking to a business owner about this, and she was retelling me how she was struggling and couldn't work out why she had lots of people visiting to look around, but couldn't get them to purchase from her. And it's quite an experience buying a wedding dress. You end up going into the shop, often with more than one person. It's a bit of an event, really, trying on a range of shop. And so she went to feedback. And tried to encourage people to tell her what they didn't like, or what put them off. What was the reason they didn't choose her as an option? And it turns out it was all to do with the environment in which people were trying the dresses on. It wasn't quite smart enough. It wasn't trendy enough. It wasn't. They expected something a bit more comfortable. So with a little bit of investment, a little bit of common sense, nothing really, it wasn't about going ultra luxuriously into it, but that business readjusted their customer area, made it far more appealing, added music to the sense that they could use and play their own Spotify tour. And you really thought about, okay, what do I do to make this event far more enjoyable and far more sociable? And she saw her business increase by 50%. And that's because suddenly you built that reputation. And that was to pick up Alicia's point about feedback identifying things that the business owner is blind to by comparison to others. And the other one was in a hardware business who saw a review. I mean, this is selling power tools, saw a review, and the customer was happy, but bemoaned the fact that they had to buy a power tool to do one little job. This wasn't a tradesman. This is a DIY person, my kind of person, and really wanted to hire the tool. He didn't want to buy one tool he's going to use once a year, maybe. And so this business picked up on that, and now does small tool hire, and offers that as a service. So. And it's about changing the face of his retail business. Say, well, I don't always have to sell something. If I hire a piece of equipment out time and time again, maybe that's what individuals need. They don't want to have to invest in a tool they're going to use for one specific job once every 2 years. And they saw that hire aspect of their business build and build and build. And it just shows that listening to that feedback and taking it seriously and considering what's being said, not just looking at the stars and saying, oh, another 4-star, fantastic. Read the content and really ask yourself, okay, no, that's interesting. Let's have a look at that and see what I can do. And so two really good examples of businesses who were brave enough to look at what was being said and then act on that feedback, and have seen positive results from that. So, I mean, there's probably many, many more, but you see the best of it when you read award entries and businesses talking about what they've done differently. And a lot of what they've done differently has come from reviews and feedback they've had from customers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know every time my dad did a piece of DIY, he was like, I've not got the right tool.
Yes.
And always one thing and another thing, having to buy another thing. And
yes. And you end up with a garage full of tools that you really don't use again.
Use what?
You know. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. And Alicia, sort of during these very challenging economic times, how would you say reviews can help independent retailers not just survive, but actually attract new customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think with the Trustpilot stars, they have an incredible impact on consumers in terms of like making decisions. So we know that 80% of businesses like trust a Trustpilot review, and it impacts their decision making. I think it's 1.7, it's almost 2 times. They're 2 times more likely to buy if they see positive reviews and trust a business. And so, you know, when you think about that and your business, if you are getting good reviews, and even if you've got the negative ones and they're balanced and you show great customer service, but it's the trust, right? All of this is about, can I trust this business? I'm buying a sofa, I'm renting tools, whatever it is, I'm choosing a solicitor, I'm walking into a shop to buy a wedding dress, one of the most important purchases, arguably, for a woman. Can I trust them? Have other people had a good experience? If the experience wasn't good, did they fix it? When you put those stars up, it gives people confidence. Like, this is a company that deeply cares about customer feedback, takes it seriously, and they can use that on their merchandising, on their ads, if they have a website as part of their retail offering, on the website, on the shop front. And so it gives customers more confidence when they're making decisions that this is a business I can trust, and they take me and my feedback seriously. So I mean, I use it almost daily to make my own purchasing decisions. And like I said, as having been at other companies prior to joining Trustpilot, one of the reasons I was so excited to join was I saw it in my own businesses that I worked for, the impact it has, the changes it makes. So I think I was talking about Simba mattresses, saw a 20% increase in their kind of sessions and customer moments based on good reviews and being able to showcase and how they manage those. So it has a meaningful impact for businesses in terms of stretching their dollars, attracting more customers, helping their business to grow.
Yeah, brilliant. Sorry, go on, Andrew.
Sorry, I was just going to say, just building on that and a personal experience. In a previous life, the association I worked for prior to Bira, we introduced Trustpilot. And there was a little bit of nervousness within our board of directors because it was new at the time to us and we weren't sure. But we specifically wanted Trustpilot reviews on our advice line because it was an in-house advice line, and that was the key element of trust. If you're giving advice to people, they've got to be able to trust that advice. And as soon as we introduced Trustpilot, it sharpened our minds on what we did and how we did it, because we didn't want those bad reviews. So there's a natural focus that comes in that is largely positive. But there's no doubt that as soon as those good reviews came through, we saw from there the number of interactions, the number of positivity, and the number of people using that advice line kept growing each year beyond normal rates of growth we'd had previously. So there was a clear distinction between Trustpilot reviews being used and seen compared to the pre-Trustpilot. And we saw that rate of growth increase on top of that. I'm sure there's other factors. But it just gives you the reassurance as a business looking forward to say, right, what can I do differently to increase my market share, to increase my customer base, to increase my sales and profits ultimately. And it really is a very good tool for doing so.
Absolutely. And I think just one point I'd add is that, you know, we're seeing such a huge rise in the popularity of AI, and AI almost replacing Google for search engine searches. And AI responds really well to reviews. It's one of the sort of sources that it pulls on. So it's really good, even if you're doing nothing else to get yourself seen on AI searches, reviews will help you with that as well. So they might well find you, new customers might well find you that way as well on ChatGPT, etc.
That's right. So we rank incredibly high for reviews on the sort of LLMs like ChatGPT. And so you're right, like it absolutely like introduces you to potentially new audiences that might not have necessarily seen you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. And finally, guys, if you could each give me, our listeners, one top tip about building trust through customer feedback, what would it be? Alicia?
So I would say kind of like a high say-do ratio. So I think, and what I mean by that is, I think number one, endeavor to offer good service. That's the foundation and the building block for every business. And I think most businesses go into business hoping to do that. And you said one, and now I'm going to go into three, but here I go. But I think
you're allowed three. You're listening.
So I clearly have that foundation. Be really open to the feedback and take it seriously, both good and bad. Because good can tell you where to go deeper and more, and the negative feedback can tell you where to improve things. And then three, just respond quickly and do so without any sort of emotion. Take a moment and really, I mean, emotion's good and it can create, if it's a positive review, but just make sure it's a balanced response and that you do take action on if it's a concern and resolve the issue.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alicia. And a top tip from you, Andrew?
It's a one simple message. Don't be afraid of it. I think the natural, I mentioned it earlier, there's a natural fear of feedback. But what shops and businesses have to realise is that if a customer's had a bad experience, they're going to tell others anyway, and you may not know about it. The first you know about it is the fact that you see less customers. So it's an early warning system that you should engage with, because you don't get that opportunity without it. Customers may not tell you directly otherwise. So giving them the chance to express a concern or a constructive complaint, hopefully, is a really good way of getting that early warning system out, so that you can then manage it. Because without it, there's no doubt that customers would go around and telling everyone else they knew about a bad experience, and the shop is blind to it. So don't be afraid. It opens up knowledge, it opens up information that can be used positively for the business.
Great, some brilliant tips there. Thank you, guys. So Alicia Skubick from Trustpilot and Andrew Goodacre, CEO of Bira, many thanks to you both for joining High Street Matters. And thanks to you, our audience, for listening to High Street Matters, an original podcast series for Bira, the British Independent Retailers Association. If you found the issues discussed today useful, you can find and listen to previous episodes from our first season by simply searching online for High Street Matters Bira. And you can find out more about this and other related subjects by visiting Bira's website at bira.co.uk. Meanwhile, we'll be back soon with more expert insights to help independent retailers thrive on the high street. Thank you.